Hello everyone. This month we're moving on to Stars and Stripes, the July pattern, kind of festive. Not too much stitching to talk about with this one, but we want to look at some important aspects of dealing with the white stripes on here. So let's open this up. And the most important thing I can probably tell you from the beginning is that chances are good, unless they've shifted during shipping, is I have put your stars in place on your blue. And you really do not want to move them off of that blue. You want to touch them as little as you possibly can. They're very, very delicate. I don't know if I ever mentioned this. I probably have. That these are all cut on a Cricut. And this is about as small and complicated as the Cricut can possibly handle. In fact, if we look at one of these little, I don't know if I can get this little tiny star to show here. This is a star that is a defective one. I don't know if I can get it to show. But what ends up happening, yeah, you can kind of see it there, is it essentially cuts through the little, tips on the star. You can see it pretty good there. You can see all of these three. So the edges of your star are very loosely attached because of the nature of how these are cut. They're cut on a Cricut Maker using a wheel, which coincidentally, if you have a Cricut and you'd like to try cutting some of these yourself, I can make those patterns public, but they're not formatted to help you make them. It's only the straight patterns on there because I don't actually sell anything on Cricut. I can't honestly figure out how to do that, but that's a whole other discussion. But as you can see on this little teeny tiny star, there's kind of cut through. So you really do not want to touch these stars too much, or else your little arms could end up falling off. So I've tried to place them when I ship them to you in the position that you're going to want them to be. I mean, you can move them a little bit. If you wanted like this to be a little straighter, you can move them a little, but they're super, super delicate. And they have the fusible webbing facing down for you. That's going to be the key issue with your white pieces. And this comes down because you really can't see the webbing on the off-white felt. You have to feel it and see if you can feel which side has the webbing on it. So I can tell this has got a little rubbery feel to it. So that's the surface that I'm going to want to put facing down. So you want to take your blue piece that has your very delicate stars already in position there. And then you've got these 4 stripes. So the longest one, and again, I'm feeling it. That's what I'm doing as you're looking at my fingers, feeling it here, is going to go right underneath that blue section. And that kind of gets our first stripe on there as a reference for where the others are going to go. You've got another that's got essentially straight sides. This side's got a little bit of slant to it. That's going to go out against your heart, and that goes kind of here in the upper portion of your heart. Now, these other two are very similar, but you can see one is slightly shorter than the other. The longer one's going to go down in this bottom, and then the shorter one, and again, I'm feeling this to make sure I've got the fusible webbing side down. The other one's going to come up here. And if you place these down and something's hanging off and they don't look equal to you or whatever you want to do here, you can certainly, once you've ironed them down, you can trim this little edge so that they're lined up nice and neatly. And you can see that these are fairly straight when they're on here. The funny thing about this particular picture is it, because of the curve of the ornament when the picture was taken, it makes the stripes look wonky, which this ornament, if you saw it in person, is not that way. So that's kind of an optical illusion, but the stripes should be straight for you when you put them in place. So you're going to take this once you have this in place and do your usual thing. Take and put a piece of fabric over it and then place your iron up and down on there to get this nice and adhered. And then again, if you have any that are hanging over here, you can take your scissors and do a little bit of trimming to make that look nice and neat for you. All right, so as usual, through the magic of television here, I have one that's already ironed down for you. And of course, this is the block version. This one, I was a little bit messy when I did my edges. This was for another sample that I did a while back. So we can see we got a little gap. If I wanted to be fussy, I suppose I could trim that red a little bit, or I can take this, and one of the nice things about felt is you can kind of stretch it a little bit if that's really bothering you, that you've got a gap there. This one could probably trimmed a little bit. I should have done that before I placed it down. But again, that's being perfectionist, which isn't actually my specialty. All right, so on the sewing on this particular design, I do not blanket stitch in red around the outside of the heart. The reason I don't is every time you cross a stripe, you run the risk of putting like a red line of blanket stitching into your stripe, and that's going to look kind of funny, I think. So I don't bother to blanket stitch the outside. The only thing I blanket stitch is I take my blue floss, my 2 strands of blue, and I'm going to do around the blue portion of the flag here. As for the rest of the stitching, I'm going to back stitch across my stripes, and I do it halfway across, halfway between the stripes, and I do a line of back stitching. And I do, of course, with the corresponding color. So I'm going to do white on here, red here, white here, etc. So not too much blanket stitching on this one. It's just a big bunch of back stitching. This holds your stripes in place, kind of adds to the detailing, so you can see your stripes better. The trick to this is for it to look really neat in this case, you want to try to stay in the center, and you want to try to make your lines fairly straight. The nice thing is that this is a straight line back stitching, so you can, actually back stitch, coming forward here, coming beyond. And you can see what you're doing. There's not a lot of mystery, so, there's no invisible stitching to this. You're going to come up through your hole. If you don't like where you are before you come all the way through, of course, you can always move over. And then you're going down where you came up the last time. So you're going to make a nice line of back stitching across all of your different stripes. The other stitching you're going to want to do is to hold these stars in place, and again, add a little bit of dimension to them. And what I do for that is I'm just going to make a series of straight stitches across the stars. So I'm going to start off by coming up in the center of my star. And I always, in this case, work from the center out, because if you get the edge of your felt, it can end up looking kind of messy. You can control it a lot better here. See, if you came up here at that outer point of the star, you're going to fray this felt away a little bit, and it's going to make your point of your star look less precise. So I come up in the center, and then I go down just beyond the edge of the star. You don't want to sew through it, because again, you're going to end up fraying your felt, and you don't want to do that. So you're going to go right beyond the edge of that star, and you're going to make your 5 stitches around here. So just keep coming up through this same center hole. You can see it's taken me a couple of tries. There we go. I'm up through the same center hole. I'm going to do my next stitch. So see if I can get this in so you can see that. You can sort of see it. White on white is really hard on video, but I'm doing these little stitches along here to give us our 5 stitches to make our 5 pointed star. It adds to your star look by giving a little shine from your floss here. So there we go. We've got 4 of those in. Let me get my 5th one in. So here's my 5th stitch. And then if you want to, if you've got, I kind of got a couple of little holes there. You can always just take the point of your needle and kind of fill it back in so you can't see the hole in the center. There we go. See if I can get that so you can see it. So there are our 5 little stitches on our star. So we're going to want to do that on each of our 3 stars. So pretty straightforward design this month. Things that are going to trip you up are getting the fusible webbing side down. Again, you're not going to be able to see it. You've got to use that feel to tell which surface should be facing down. Don't backstitch around, don't blanket stitch with red around the outside, or you're going to have those little lines here. You're just going to want to do your back stitches in the corresponding color across your stripes. It adds a nice dimension to your design, and then you're going to finish it up with you doing some straight stitches, 5 straight stitches on each of your stars. Oh, and you'd blanket stitch around the blue. So that's our design for July, just to celebrate Independence Day, Stars and Stripes. See you again next month.